And here we have this evening none other than Hall of Famer Gus Logie, Hall of Famer John Melbourne, and Secretary to the Cricket Hall of Fame, none other than the Honorable Dale Brown. And yours truly, welcoming you to this preview of the upcoming World Series. And do we have some opinions for you? So let me kick over to our host for this program, none other, again, I say, than Secretary to the Cricket Hall of Fame, the Honorable Dale Brown.
Okay, thank you, sir, Professor, and greetings to everyone, especially the panelists, the esteemed Gus Logie, and of course, the iconic broadcaster from New York, Mr. John Melbourne. You know, one of the great voices that we have on our radio or any platform whatsoever. It used to be radio alone once upon a time. And gentlemen and fans and everyone, welcome to you all. Now we are bubbling with excitement because the T20 World Cup is right around the corner, getting ready to start. And just to go straight into the hot waters, we're going to ask Mr. Gus Logie to tell us how will Pakistan forfeiting that stage game against the group stage game against India, how will it affect their chances of advancing to the Super 8?
Thank you very much, and nice to be here again. Well, even before we go to therefore forfeiting the game, it's still some days to go. Not too sure what's going to happen between now and the 15th. Whether or not they will be taking part at all in the tournament. So that's a discussion that we will certainly have to go into before we even get to that stage. As you say, the politics is heating up on that side. Two ways about it. Now you're hearing where the politicians on the Bangladesh side are happy to get the support from Pakistan, but the Bangladesh Cricket Board itself is now worried of the issue between Pakistan and India if they do pull out of that game. They are now worried about the financial implication, not just for Pakistan cricket, but for Bangladesh cricket as well. Because you remember when we spoke last week, we talked about how important Pakistan-India game is to the World Cup, one, in terms of finance. We talk about it, and we may not have gone into details as to the kind of money that those two countries generate when they do play against each other. Hence the reason why almost every tournament, ICC tournament, they do pit them to play against each other in the group stages, and then hopefully they do make it to the semifinals or finals. But let's look at the possible scenarios, if we may. You're talking about ICC stand to lose millions and millions of dollars if that game does not take place. We're talking about broadcasters, the kind of money that the broadcasters themselves will be losing. Because when they invested in a tournament like this, they invested in a tournament believing that there is some certainty in terms of the fixtures. And one of the fixtures that the broadcasters would have invested in having is an India-Pakistan game. It meant they could have sold that rights to other entities as well. So that is a setback. If it does take place, it is a great setback financially. It would also be a setback for the respective boards because they themselves will stand to lose a substantial amount of revenue derived from the World Cup, whatever is left, if you want to call it that, from having that game played and the amount of resources that would have gathered. Think about it. The repercussions are immense. In terms of Pakistan losing out on potential revenue for even the PSL. Players who are contracted to the Indian business tycoons who own teams, not just in CPL, but also in the South African Cricket League. They own some of those great players as well. they could also get involved and say, look, we are not going to release our players to play in your competition. So there could be a big chain reaction. And I don't think we really sat down and look at it as to exactly how far this could go. Because at the end of the day, I don't think India, the BCCI, will sit quietly and allow Pakistan to just pull out of their game. There may be a backlash before now and the 15th that the ICC could say, if you don't give us a guarantee that you're going to take part in that particular game with them, we may simply decide to leave you out of the World Cup completely. So that in itself also is serious complication. But of course, all of that is conjecture, as I said, but it's a possibility. If at the end of the day, all things remain as is on the table, that they are in the tournament, but they forfeit that game, it means they're going to lose that point, obviously. And it makes their chances of even going forward even more difficult. You know, still no two ways about it. Yeah.
That's a strong opinion, Brother Gus.
It is what it is, as I said before. It is. That's just the way it is. I mean, every day it's the whole situation is being compounded by more and more players getting involved. People are now having their say. Some people are still, not sure as to exactly the real reasons for Pakistan pulling out at this point in time. And as I say, they're pulling out halfway, or, it is very, very difficult. Pakistan cricket, let's put it this way, is dependent a lot on cricket BCCI involvement in hosting, in generating the finances for ICC to pay those boards. And maybe 50% or 70% of Pakistan's, finances comes from maybe the ICC. And where do you think the ICC is getting all that money from? It's television rights, it's broadcasters, it's sponsors, and most of those business tycoons who are putting money into cricket and ICC are from India.
Brother, well, I know Brother John have some opinion about that too, because I've been having some conversation with him.
And I recently looked at what is happening in the Caribbean. And we're talking about the Caribbean not giving the support, but it's just like the politics that is happening in and around the Caribbean right now with Venezuela. I don't want to go there, but that's what is happening. The smaller countries really cannot stand up to the bigger countries like America. They can't, because they know what's going to happen. So they are between a rock and a hard place. And it's the same thing with the cricket. The West Indies Cricket Board is between a rock and a hard place. All the CPL teams are owned, except possibly one, which is maybe the Guyana Army one, which is owned by a local businessman. 90% of the other teams are owned by Indian business people.
Okay,
and don't tell me that the business people in India.
So cast a vote. Tell us, do you think cast a vote? Do you think they're gonna stay or they're gonna go?
Well, at this point in time, I feel they're gonna have to rethink that situation of not playing against India.
Because of the money factor.
Because of the money. So the politicians will have to climb down somewhere there, because it's going to be catastrophic for their players, for their cricket, and at the end of the day, that is not going to be good for World Cup.
Well, in light of the fact, Brother Dale, that there is a conversation going on out there that they should let past cricketers and people who know the game and who know the stress that players go through when things change or when things get interrupted. They're saying that some suggestion is that cricketers, past cricketers, should be the ones running the whole industry, and not some person who just have the money. But
well, look, I think it has to be a collaboration.
Yeah, gentlemen, the Pakistan is set to play tomorrow. So I believe it behooves us to move forward, that they are playing the game tomorrow.
Okay.
The indication is that they are going to play. So let's say they do not play India. How is that going to affect their ability to move forward? Because it has been done by other teams before, where they forfeit games and went on in the tournament.
And at those times, ICC never kicking the team out for not.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. West Indies have forfeited games and they have never been kicked out of any tournament.
Yeah, yeah.
Australia has forfeited games, never been kicked out of any tournament. I
That's
understand their ramifications to the Pakistan India situation, but it's a matter now. Pakistan is there, they traveled there, and I'm going to say that they traveled there with the intention of playing. But there's nothing there stating in the rules that they must, because other people have done it up to recently, not in the distant past, but in the recent past, people have done it. So they could forfeit the game. And John, I'll swing this over to you. What it basically means is it's a 5-team group that is staged across 4 groups, and it's the top 2 that moves on to the Super 8. So what it basically is telling you that Pakistan will more than likely have to win every game that they have scheduled outside of the Indian game to advance. So I'd like for John to look at it from that point of view.
I think, well, first of all, let me just say good evening to my fellow panelists and to folks who might be picking up this broadcast at some point. I think that Pakistan will advance to the Super 8. But what I am looking at, guys, they advanced. What if Pakistan and India were to get to the final? And Pakistan, so we know Pakistan not going to play India.
So the question is,
I mean, that is now where we're talking about the big money, not the final.
and the final is being played in India.
Yeah. Well,
that's dangerous.
So and as I think I mentioned previously, it's difficult for, as Gus said, the small teams now to support a boycott of this World Cup, because they need the money that they will get from the World Cup to help with the development of their local cricket. But it's I think it's unfortunate that the political arena has drained into the sporting arena, and will disrupt maybe 2 good teams going at it neck and neck to win a championship. Because Pakistan, they say, although they are unpredictable, every now and then they turn up with a big game, and it would be unfortunate to see that they're not going to be playing. And we want to see them playing on good competition, But I am looking beyond that February 15 game, that they both get to the final, and what happens then. And I have not heard the ICC respond in terms of sanctions against Pakistan yet.
The question is, based on what the deal said, can they sanction them? Based on history and precedents.
Based on history, it would probably be unprecedented if they were sanctioned.
Right.
Although the circumstances in the past would have been different. The circumstances when boycotts happened in the past were different. It was on some of the grounds were because of security, other grounds were because of the government's saying that teams could not travel because of situations that may have happened on the ground, that the players themselves had an issue with safety. And I think you cannot say that is the same situation for Pakistan. Pakistan's situation is a little different. Pakistan has chosen. Pakistan is not threatened by forces on the ground for security reasons or other reasons. They made a decision to support another team because of what transpired. And they made the conscious decision not to take part against a team playing in a neutral venue. Even though at the end of the day, they don't shake hands But it don't- you understand? So this is a different situation entirely. I am not saying that they cannot be afforded some of the same rights as other, but this situation, we have to put it in context. It's a different context. You understand what I'm saying? What Pakistan is using a different context to what other teams would have done in the past by not traveling to a particular venue because of safety reasons. This has nothing to do with safety reasons. This is pure politics.
Okay. Thanks, Gus. And not in response, but just to point out to our viewers and listeners that the West Indies withdrew from the World Cup, albeit it was the women's team, because of South Africa playing against New Zealand, and they withdrew in protest of New Zealand playing against the South African rugby team during the apartheid era. So if that is totally political, we see where Australia and West Indies forfeited their points. And if we notice even in the media, the subtle use of certain words, we are now hearing that Pakistan is boycotting. But when Australia and the other teams did it, they were forfeiting. That's a very subtle difference right there.
Exactly.
And the implications of the words, what are you trying to tell me? Forfeiture and boycott. Professor, your thoughts?
Well, what they're trying to say is that one might apply to the team and one might apply to the politics.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So in 2009, when England refused to give the players from Zimbabwe visas to come to England, and that was one situation. But then when they went to Zimbabwe and refused to play against the Zimbabwe team because they didn't like who the president of the Zimbabwe team was, and they forfeited the game.
Right.
So what is the difference with that scenario?
Well, the thing is, ICC needs to tell us what is the difference while they're using two different words to describe the action that is taking place. Because in the long run, it means that they're not playing. The teams are not playing against each other. Yet we are dancing around with forfeit and boycott. And we don't know why ICC is using two different words for two different situations. They need to explain to us how do they justify and say one is a boycott and one is a forfeit. Because until Brother Dale pointed to those colliding synonyms, okay, we would have thought that boycott and forfeit was the same thing.
Not according to Webster.
That's according to Webster.
But let me ask, we're talking about ICC. Let me ask a question because, and frankly, I'm asking the question because from my own education, I don't know. Who makes cricket rules? Is it ICC or MCC?
The latter, MCC.
But MCC is not the one putting on the tournament.
No.
Tournament rules are different to the rules of the game entirely. So each tournament may have their own rules as set down by the governing bodies come together and basically they have tournament rules, which is ICC. But the MCC is playing rules, regulations, everything comes from the MCC. That's why there are so many changes in the last few days. They're changing what you call, I think it's not a run-out play, but they just changed the rules concerning, I think, overthrows and certain things like that, making the game more complicated than it's supposed to be. Really. But that
and I tell you why I asked that question. It's in my mind. I'm saying, who really runs cricket? Because if MCC is making the rules, then who runs cricket?
Well, it's two separate situations, if you want to call it. They're all intertwined. If you want to call it, there's some of the same individuals, who have a say here and have a say there. But ICC runs the global game. But BCCI seems to be the one who will bankroll most of the ICC tournaments. Because most 70 or 80% of the revenue really from world cricket comes from India. Whether we like it or not, that's just the reality. So one continues to say that ICC may be an extension of the BCCI, in if you want to put it in that balance. But that is the reality of the situation.
So my question therefore, Brother Gus, is does India really want to see cricket develop?
Well, look, I recently did a little bit of research, and let's put it this: ICC, mandate, as much as they keep saying that they want to expand the game. I don't know, from reading some of the journals, ICC has not really been given a mandate to really expand this game as you think. I think a few weeks ago we talked about FIFA and how FIFA has spread the game to all throughout the world, and make it a global game. ICC, I don't know that ICC generally has put out a statement that they were there to really expand the game as we think. The game still, generates the general from just a few of the cricketer nation, the full members. They are the ones who really and truly control cricket, as we say. The associate members really and truly do not have much of a say as to what really goes on, in world cricket. They just sit there basically and take whatever is given to them. They're happy to be part of the the T20 global circuit. But in general, really and truly, I don't know that MCC has said their mandate is to spread this game far and wide.
I have to ask the question as to what is India's position, since they have so much leverage. If they decide to make an adjustment, everything is settled.
Yeah.
Okay? If India say, okay, we're going to go do this with Pakistan, game on.
Yeah.
Everything is settled. Okay? So ICC, therefore, is in this situation is weaker than India, and BCCI is also weaker than India. Because as you said, yes, money talks. And when the money have a stranglehold on cricket, my question, therefore, does India really want to see US cricket develop to compete against them? Since we're talking about money being on the Western Front over here, a lot of money to challenge what might be contributed to ICC if you really develop cricket between USA all the way down to Brazil on the in the Western world. Does India want to surrender that? Because that is how the politics sometimes comes into it. We might hear that they don't want the Monroe Doctrine to come to come into their cricket hierarchy.
The Monroe Doctrine or the Trump Doctrine. Anyways, but I think I think we Brother Dale has asked us a question as to the format that we have. Brother Dale, could you just give us the teams just to make sure that we know the four teams in that particular group that Pakistan is in outside of India? They'll be playing.
Oh, yes, sure. Of course, you have Pakistan and India. You have the Netherlands, who Pakistan will play in their first match. You have the USA and you have Namibia.
Namibia, right.
Yes, the USA and Netherlands. Those are the other three teams in addition to India and Pakistan.
But I think if you look at the form book and you look at the teams that you will think will get through in that group, you would want to think that Pakistan and also India will really go through from that particular group. But we cannot discount those other teams because we've seen upsets before in international cricket. We have seen where Pakistan were beaten by USA in the last T20 World Cup in the Caribbean and America.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the practice games that were played recently, the warm-up games, and even though you might not want to put too much currency on some of these practice games because they may use possibly more players than maybe allowed in a regular game. But if it gives you an indication at all on the progress of those associate teams, you really cannot take them lightly. Pakistan, even though they just came from a series win against Australia in Pakistan, the quality of the Australian team on that tour was basically almost like a C team, because most of the Australian heavyweights never traveled to Pakistan to play in that series. So Pakistan would have won that series. But I wouldn't put it past one of those teams, Namibia, USA, or even the Netherlands, to really and truly upset Pakistan in Sri Lanka, especially all that is happening around them at this point in time. Granted that recently the captain of the team has said, look, we are here to play cricket, yes. The decision not to play against India is not our call. That's the politician's call. So I know for a fact that they would be under some pressure to perform, to deliver. So it could be a very interesting game come tomorrow because the Netherlands and those teams are very much improved teams and they're not afraid. They have competent players. They have players who are playing in the English divisions and they're playing top-notch cricket. So this 2020 format, I don't see it as an easy walkover for Pakistan tomorrow. I hope it will be, but I don't see it as an easy walkover.
Okay. So, John, as we said, and thank you very much, Gus, for outlaying everything there for us. Only the top two teams from that group will advance. Now, not only Pakistan need to win all three remaining games, but if they end up, we have to look at things like the no results from rain, etc., etc. And if they get caught up in a situation like that, they may end up in a net run rate, your favorite thing, John, the net run rate. They may end up having to depend on net run rate. Now, if they forfeit the game against India, their net run rate would take a huge, huge blow because it would be calculated as if they scored 0 runs in 20 overs. So it's going to knock them out from that. So they cannot afford to be tied with any team for that second spot.
Or lose to any team in for that second spot.
Yes, they can't afford it. They have to win all the games.
They have to sweep. Yeah. And I know, as I said, Pakistan tend to be unpredictable sometimes, but I think they will beat these teams. The threat in that group was really India. But I think they will play well enough to get out of the group.
Okay. Professor, are you, just putting it to you, there are 4 groups of 5, and in those 4 groups, 8 teams, 2 from each team, they are seeded to move on to the next stage. So in that group, we have India and Pakistan, and that is the big thing. And it's the same thing like with West Indies. They are also seeded to go through in their group, and they are in their group with England, and then Australia is in a group with Sri Lanka. They are expected to go through, and New Zealand in a group with South Africa. They are expected to go through. That is not the only seeding though, because they seed them to get into the group, the Super 8 stage, and then they have already seeded them, preceded them in the Super 8 stage of the competition. So, Professor, what do you think about the precedings, especially up to that stage?
Well, my concern is about the fact that now that Scotland has come in as a replacement, they are getting a seeding that they never merit.
Well, they didn't get a seeding though. They only seeded 8 teams.
Right.
Yes, but since they're a replacement team, they are filling in for one top team that was seeded.
No, that team wasn't seeded.
Okay. Well, it is interesting that it is evolving this way, because while we are distracted by what is going on between Pakistan and India, other teams are also being distracted. As a matter of fact, the whole industry is distracted. And you have to ask yourself, preparation time, analysis time that should have been spent in analyzing different facets of the game in preparation to go forward, if that time is being shortchanged. Okay? Because we would have been talking about something a little bit more analytical, except that we are, we are still we don't know if Pakistan is going to play. They could be playing a mind game with India. Pakistan might be the first one on the field. Okay.
You never know. You never know. As I said, they broke kind of deal behind the scenes because of the amount of finances involved. So you never know. You never. But Brother Dale, I just want you to look at your stats book. I know you are a man with all the stats, and in terms of the tournament itself, is it on a similar basis to the under-19 tournament that just finished played in terms of the seeded team? If you beat the seed team, you take the 2 points into the Super 8s. Is that the same as the T20 World Cup, that you take points into the Super 8? Because it's going to be important. No, the 2 seeded teams, you will want to beat, the West Indies will certainly want to beat England so that they can take 2 points into the Super 8. Is that the same? Because I know initially that's what used to take place. Has it changed?
No, it would be played. It would start over.
Okay, so you're on equal points.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's still some extremists out there who are saying that India might not take the field against Pakistan. Okay. Because they have too many things that have been unresolved from the last time they met.
Yeah. No, but I am quite sure from the information gathered that India will be there. They will certainly want to take the field. I think that that's the only way they will be able to get the points. Because again, as far as ICC is concerned, there really and truly, is no reason, there's no real reason for Pakistan to not really and truly play the game. They decided they're not going to play the game because of their support for Bangladesh and, of course, the political situation in Pakistan. It is not a player situation. It is basically the government this decision not to play. So at the end of the day, but the BCCI has the blessing from their government to play the game. The Indian government is quite adamant that you go ahead and play. So the BCCI will have their players out there and they will be ready to warm up and they will be waiting for Pakistan. If Pakistan don't show up, well, there and then is where a decision will be taken. I'm certain after that, if they don't show up, a decision will take place one way or the other.
Yeah, but if Pakistan does show up and want to shake hands,
well, that's a different story. They might want to, but I don't think the Indians will want to because of their political situation. I think that is a different.
Is shake hands a part of the process for this tournament?
Well, it is a protocol of the game, and it is basically what the game should be all about. We should leave the politics off the field. It's no two ways about it. These players, I can tell you, the Indian players and the Pakistan players get along quite well, behind closed doors. They have no issues. They talk, they correspond. I am certain that, some of them are very good friends.
True,
This is not about the players. This is basically about something a lot bigger than they.
Yeah,
so they have to now show basically the world that, hey, we are going by what our politicians say we should do. But this has nothing to do with the players.
This is deep politics, I mean, their politics is such that they're willing to fight each other over their politics.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is this: if Pakistan is instructed by their government to take the field and do not leave and demand that handshake takes place,
no,
and do not take the field unless they're going to take the field in the spirit of sportsmanship, that India must come and shake hands. Okay? And remember, Pakistan has a trophy they would like to deliver, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And India is the one who said they don't want to take it from them.
No.
Okay?
He was really the president.
So rather than forfeit, if Pakistan forfeit they're going to lose 2 points. But if they take the field and make a statement, okay, they can embarrass India. Okay? Because if India do not shake Pakistan hands, they can't shake anybody else's hands.
Okay. So,
that's
John,
another angle.
Yeah,
John,
yeah.
is this a calculated risk? Pakistan would have played 2 matches before they play India.
India. Yeah.
And let's say they win the 2 games. The next, regardless, we know upsets and everything can happen. But let's say they win the 2 games. And India would be overwhelming favorites to beat them anyway. So the next game that they play would be against Namibia. And that would be tantamount to perhaps even a greater upset than when Kenya beat West Indies. So how much of a risk are they really? Because you said you expect Pakistan to go through. But when you look at the schedule, you see that it is really set in a way that favors them, where they can afford not to play the game against India. Now, if India is so powerful, by the way, and so rich, why does it matter to them if they lose the money from this game?
I don't think it's just about India losing the money. It is everybody else. You see, it is not just about India. Maybe the India Cricket Board might say to themselves, fine, we can lose, 5, 6, 7, up to how much millions. But it's the broadcasters. It is also Pakistan is going to lose. It is also the other boards who's going to lose. ICC is going to lose. There's so many entities outside, who could who will lose a hell of a lot of money. It's not just the Indian Cricket Board. You see, and I'm saying there is also an opening for things like Pakistan to be sued, because remember, Pakistan and the other boards would have signed contracts prior to this tournament and other tournaments saying that they would play against each other. You understand what I'm saying? So these are part of the contract that they would have signed. It wasn't a sign a contract and saying there's a caveat here that if this happens, I might not be able to. No, you sign a contract, you give an obligation to the governing body that you will take part in this tournament and you will abide by the rules, you will do X, Y, and Z. What you have done, as you said, they're using words now that are different from, forfeiting. They're using words that you are more boycotting. So you are subjected now to possibly lawsuits from advertisers, lawsuits from, sponsors. So they have to weigh that up against what decision they're making, whether it's a moral decision or not. They have to say to themselves, we are prepared to lose, but this is a decision that we are prepared to take in support of Bangladesh. But as I said before, recently, having heard from the Bangladesh Cricket Board, they are also concerned about this new development that they're not going to play the game because they themselves realizing how much it could affect them. You realize the conversation is now moved away from Bangladesh. It is no longer Bangladesh anymore. It is now Pakistan. Whereas before it was Bangladesh, the situation was about.
Well, one of the ripple effects, is that other posting platform is watching what is going on. And India has put in a bid for the 2036 Olympics. And the question that has been raised is, will they give India, even consider giving India consideration for the 2036 Olympics? Based on what is going on right now.
Professor,
yes,
you have hit a very important point because, again, the media and whoever is around the cricketing scene, they are trying to distract us into a certain direction.
Right.
And we are not looking beyond what is obvious to us because we have seen cricket go through many, many, many crises. Yeah. We have seen the same FIFA go through many crises. And the ones who try to bully the others, they end up in the end having to back down.
Right.
And I will predict here now that India, regardless of what happened in this World Cup, their stranglehold, if we want to call it that, will come into great question because it's India against the rest of the world. Essentially, that is what it is.
That's
and
right.
Eventually, a little boy is going to get up and take a sling and a stone and slay that Goliath.
That's right.
Okay, money. If that were the case, we just turn over the world to all the money men.
That's
just
right.
turn it over to them. and give it to them. You know, so it's going to come up and you know, right now we have a predetermined seedings for the Super 8, and there will be two groups in the Super 8. We're jumping a little bit out,
Sure.
but just to show you what Pakistan would have to do now to get to the semi-finals. India, Australia, West Indies, and South Africa. Two countries are going to get their heart very much broken in that group.
Mhm.
South Africa, West Indies, Australia, and India. Two out of those four. I think Group 2 is a little bit weaker in England, New Zealand, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. What are the chances of Pakistan advancing out of that group, whether or not they play India in the group stage? That's for you, Gus.
Mhm, mhm. Well, providing that they don't, that they do make it, as you say, let's put it that way, provided that they make it to the Super 8s, which I still have my doubts. But let's they make it to the Super 8s. I think it's going to be difficult for them to get out of it.
That's
Because
Pakistan.
England is playing a brand of cricket right now that is very much superior to some of the other teams. New Zealand haven't played a lot in India over the last few weeks, even though they would have lost against India. Put up some decent scores, you know. And I think any team, you know, that can score possibly 260, 240, 250 against India in India is telling me that they are prepared to even go bigger against some of the other teams. And I want to say something here. I wouldn't be surprised in this tournament if somebody reached that 300, to be quite honest, in T20 cricket. I will not be surprised if one of those teams or two of those teams pass the 300. I can tell you that big scores will be chased down. Judging from the type of surfaces that I have seen played and prepared in India, if they prepare those surfaces as they have done in the past, a 300-run score is not out of the question. So I think New Zealand will be there and England will be there.
You know, India is a 500 team, you know. I mean, they have the money, but India is a 500 team. So for me, I would also bet long shot that India don't make it out of the group.
India?
India has the money. One of their top bowlers is hurt, and they have to replace him, I think.
They have enough replacement, believe me.
Yeah. And with Virat Kohli and Sharma is in that.
I wouldn't bet against India getting into the semifinals. I would bet
Yeah. No, I wouldn't bet against them
certainly,
either.
But Brother Deal,
the group that we're
Yes,
talking
sir.
about is the other group.
what
Right now,
has been India's record over the last 20 games?
Who's record?
They have not had a winning record. No, this is
India?
I'm mixing up the things. The T20.
Yeah.
I have to go and check to get you the exact record.
India has done exceptionally well in the T20 tournaments in the last few, possibly 20 games or more. They've won most of them. They would have stuttered a bit in the 50 over against New Zealand, but outside of that, they have beaten almost everybody else. You know, they have chased down some incredible totals. They have set some incredible totals. And the last series against New Zealand, they would have beaten New Zealand 4 games to possibly 1. So again, you know, they are turning up quality players almost every other day. The replacement players coming in and doing exceptional work. There's a young guy who came in just recently, played 2 games, Ishan Krishnan, wicketkeeper batsman, scored 200s, you know, in the 2 or 3 games he played. And one of the good things that I said before of these players is that a lot of these T20 players and these top teams are now, the individual players are scoring hundreds. They're not just scoring a quick 50 or a quick 60 or a quick 70, they're scoring hundreds. That makes a difference, you know, to a lot of other teams that may have some really top players who can hit big sixes and stuff, but they're not going on. So top players like West Indies, for instance, our West Indian team has the potential to upset everybody, you know, in that tournament. But we have to play a brand of cricket that says we are mentally tougher and show a lot more game awareness in order to really and truly take it to the best of them on a consistent basis. But we have the quality. But that's where we are falling short a lot of time. Tactical awareness is something that we don't seem to gather as much as we should. and also the mental resilience when things go type, how do we respond? Where other teams, you see them, the top players, they know exactly what needs to be done, and they continue to not leave it to the other guy until the job is done. Look, I mean, yesterday we watched, I don't know if some of you watched the under-19 finals today between England and India team. They made 411 in a 50 over game. 411. This is setting the bar even higher than most. Yes, England made 311 as well. In 40 overs, they got bowled up. So it tells you what is possible now. And one youngster who played in the IPL recently, he's 14 years old, his age.
Surya Vanchi.
He scored 175 and 80 balls.
Surya
So when you
Vanchi.
see that type of quality, it tells you how far behind we are in our development. And again, this may be a different topic for a different time, but we will certainly have to explore why is it that so many of these young players in the other teams keep producing these kind of performances, and taking their teams to victory when we seem to think we have the same level of talent at that level, but we are not moving on to do the same. We are quite happy with this illusion of success, of possibly just getting, not even getting out of the Super 8s, but because we had 2 or 3 good performances in between, we are quite happy. We say we had some success. But I digress. I think we're talking about the World Cup. What I'm saying is that it's a similar situation with the West Indies team and other top teams. Our top batsmen cannot be satisfied with scoring a quick 70. And when you score a quick 70 and then you get out, somebody else has to come and start. Quick 50 and you get out. And when you look at not just a quick 50, but in terms of the strike rate, India's top 6 or 5 batters, their strike rate is about 170 odd, 180. Our top strike rate is about 140 odd. So that's the big difference in average throughout their careers.
One question I would like to raise from outside the left field. Do you think the educational standards, okay, of the territories or the country that we are dealing with has a lot to do with the approach to the game? And not only because even as we look at India and we look at UK, we classify them as first world countries, okay? We do not classify the West Indies as first world countries, okay? We criticize the level of education, not maybe at the highest level in the universities, but among the players that we produce, okay? And when it comes to India and maybe Nigeria, everybody only come out of India as a doctor.
Yeah, I think that has been an issue for quite a long time. We have, when I was involved with West Indies cricket, we would have tried to address some of those situations, basically making sure that our youngsters finish school or are doing well in school. It has not been a consistent effort throughout. I think many people are afraid to really touch that subject. They seem to think if you have talent, that's good enough. And we are saying, no, we want to develop the youngster in a holistic point of view. We want to make sure that they have talent, but they also have other qualities that go in that talent. Because simple things we had identified in the early days when I was coach of the national team or the U team, we would talk about having development sessions for guys, and we get to have them fill out forms, we get to have them write signatures, we have to get them to read. These are things we found that some of our young under 19 players and under 15 players were a little bit deficient in, and we tried to address it. Unfortunately, it has not been widespread throughout, and I'm not taking away from some of those youngsters who were brilliant, because we had some really brilliant youngsters in the time when I was involved with our cricket. I don't know if that process has continued throughout the Caribbean, but it was a recommendation that our youngsters, that we see that they improve themselves at their schooling, and that get regular feedback from their teachers and from whatever institutions that they were in. And even at the academy level, I would think now that there should be a component whereby these youngsters go into these academies and not just do cricket specific, but they also do classroom sessions in so many different areas, whereby they can develop themselves, whether it's media broadcasting, whether it's to build up their own self-esteem and their own mental development, such. So I am trusting that those things are happening at this point in time. So that we are developing young players who are a lot more rounded and a lot more aware of what is happening in and around them. You know, we used to do simple things. We used to sit as groups and discuss things that are happening in the society. Crime, how it affects you. Crime, what happened, and you know what's happening here, what's happening there. How does it affect you? How do you view it? You know, all those things are part and parcel of the discussion that used to take place with the youngsters and when I was in. So as I said before, I'm trusting that these things are still happening. So that what you get out there, even when you do interviews, you can sense and see if a player is aware of his own mental strength, he's aware of his own skill set, he's aware of exactly the game plan. You know, at the end of the day, sometimes you don't get it, but you like to think that that is where youngster could express himself. You know, so that when you listen to him, you can say, well, yeah, he knows exactly what is happening from day to day, from week to week, what is happening in the team, how the team is preparing. But it's very, very difficult, you know, and eventually to monitor what is happening at this point in time in the Caribbean.
Brother Gus, in continuing that, one of the things that we normally found, especially in the West Indies and in the United States, that most athletes in general, where the physicality of the game was a standout feature. They look at success in athletics as a way to get out of a community or to get ahead. Okay? Now, when you look at cricket was not set up for the community to move ahead. Cricket was a royal elite game, like golf. Okay? So, one of the conversation I've heard is whether or not, even as we talk about having our experienced or retired players being deeply involved in managing cricket, do they have the wherewithal? Not one or two, okay? But do they have the wherewithal to really develop? Because even sometimes when we see someone who has the interest, the type of skills that they need to interact with business, to go after sponsors, okay, to put a proposal together that is outside of me and it's about the we, they don't have it. So while they have an interest, when they do get the position, you can pretty much cap them. So you find that you talk about how educated a person is who is the president of West Indies cricket. Okay? Yes. But at the same time, we're not talking about the downstream where all the development is coming from. So the very fact that you have to point out how educated a president of the West Indies cricket is, it's like it's an abnormality for an educated man to be involved in cricket. Because you're not saying that the guy at the grassroots who is developing cricket is very educated. Because we do not teach cricket in our primary schools or in most of our high schools. So education does not seem to factor in. It's bowling the ball, hitting the ball, and feeling the ball.
Certainly, you know, yeah, but I know we have digressed, right? Right, Brother Dale. We've gone on a different tangent. Going back to Brother Dale.
No, it is
We
good.
want to now finish that group West Indies group. Let's go, Brother Dale. West Indies.
All right. So I'll call the names out again. Thanks, Brother Gus. India, Australia, South Africa, and West Indies. That's the projected predetermined group for the Super 8s. And Gus, you're the most familiar with it than the rest of us. So what do you think about that group and what you expect?
Yeah, well, you know, my heart and mind is always with the West Indies. There's no two ways about it. I am a West Indian through and through. I would love to see West Indies in the semi-finals. But I know it's going to be a Herculean task to really and truly beat India. It will be just as tough to beat Australia and even more so against South Africa, who we have just played, and we have seen what South Africa can produce. Even though the conditions will be a little bit different because you're playing in India. But many of those players on all those teams have enough experience playing in the leagues in India, whatever. They have played there, they have a lot of fans there, so the crowd will not be intimidating to any of them. I think the least experienced players we have would be from on the West Indies side playing in India. When you look at the Samsons and some of the other guys who are just coming on stream, at the end of the day, playing in front of you from maybe the Moti and a few of the other guys. But to be quite honest, I think India for me would be a disappointment if India don't get into the semifinals, one. And I would still feel Australia would be that second team out of that group. So yeah, but I would love to see an upset on West Indies. Will be my dark horse.
Of course. So, Brother John, you have been quiet.
Yeah. My problem with this team, our West Indies team, I think they're going to have to play above their heads to get into the Super 8. I'd love to see them in there because when you look at start with the batting, none of the batsmen average above in the 30s, everybody in the 20s. And you need, and I'm not sure I see, you have a Brandon King, you have a Shea Hope, you have Shimran. Interestingly, that Shimran Hetmeyer has come in at number 3 in a couple of matches recently and seemed to have done pretty well, but pretty well in terms of making it in 50s, but not going on to the triple figure. As Gus was alluding to, that, a half century is not good enough. You get a half century, you're looking for a century. And as I said, Brandon King, Shea Hope, Hetmeyer, Shafrin, Rutherford, Rahman Powell, all these guys have had extensive experiences playing in Indian Premier League cricket and playing franchise cricket. But they don't seem to be able to produce when we put them on a West Indies team. And that is, my problem. With the bowling, well, let me back up. I don't think Johnson Charles should be in this squad. I would have gone with the youngster. Gus, don't laugh, Gus. I would have gone with the youngster. I would have brought that youngster Joel Andrew. If you're telling me to open the batting and wicket keeping, I would have brought in Joel Andrew from the under 19 into the senior World Cup team. Because I think if we're saying that he is the future, then we have to get him in the firing line. The bowling, Jaden Seals, Akil Hussain, Gudakesh Moti, Jason Holder, Rastan Chase. I don't think it's strong enough. Shamar Joseph. And I don't think Shamar Joseph is a white ball cricketer. I think we're wasting him at bringing him in the white ball game. He's a red ball cricketer. So, but as a West Indian, I hope and I pray for the best from the team. And I will always rally around them to hoping that they win. So I can celebrate,
Okay, Professor, any comments in regards to either the makeup of the team or what you expect them to do?
Okay, I think that all the opposition right now can pretty much call based on the what they see right now, the team that have been selected, they can pretty much call the West Indian batting order. Okay? They can pretty much predict the West Indies batting order. Charles and King, Atmaya, Sheo, you know, and so they're setting up their bowlers right there. Okay? Going over the data, doing the analytic preparation. How are you gonna bowl the first 3 overs based on who you're gonna face? Or you're gonna bowl the next 2 overs based on who you're gonna face. Okay, so they're choosing who is gonna open the first 2 overs from both ends, and who is gonna be bowling those first 5 overs in the power play, and then know who they expect to face. Me, I say now you shuffle the board. You shuffle. You put Hope and King as opening batsmen. Okay, you want Hope captain to stand there and they have to go through him. Okay? That is every one of his members of his team. If Hope holds his wicket, every one of them bat with their captain. Everyone stands shoulder to shoulder with Hope, facing the opposition. Change the batting order. The first ball must come to Hope. Throw the bowlers off their game. That's not what they expected. They expected to be bowling against Hope deeper in the overs. Okay? Let them face your best batsman. Okay? And when he hit the first 6s in the first 3 overs, he sets a tone for the rest of the team. And every member is coming out there. When they're coming, when one goes down and one is coming, they come to join their captain in stopping all in the breach. Okay? That now takes that throws everything out of sync. Because now the opening batsmen bowlers, they're gonna go back into the captain. So, okay, what was the strategy for Hope? Because the man is here already. Okay? Because they're studying, every one of them is studying every batter. They're looking at the graph, where most of his balls end up. Cover, gully, slip. They have a chart on everybody. And you have to do the unpredictable. As Brother Dale said earlier, Saul had his spears and his shield, and Goliath was standing there with a bigger sword and a bigger shield. And they changed the game. They sent out a David with a sling and took Goliath off his game. The man pushed his helmet back and said, what the hell is this? Who you think you're fighting against? Okay. Yes. We have to change the play, Brother Dale. We have to change the play.
But I'd like to ask Gus this question. How important, Gus, is analytics and data as a captain in the field of play?
Well, let's put it this way. I think all teams now have what you call analysts. All teams have information on each other, from whether you're an associate team or not. Once your game is being televised somewhere, somebody has data and information about the quality of the individuals in that team, the strengths and weaknesses, and the threats of those individual players. And that will be shared with every team. So you sit in your team meeting, you have video footage put up there against the team you're up against, and you go through from number 1 to number 50, because you don't know who's going to play tomorrow in the final 11. If you know the final 11, fine. So you discuss the final 11, you discuss the batters, the opening batters, the number 3, the middle order, the late order, and you then prepare yourself as bowlers, how you're going to be bowling to X, Y, and Z. You know where they hit, where their strengths are, you know where their weaknesses are. The problem will always be, how can you as a bowler execute against those type of bowlers, those type of batsmen? And vice versa, how your batsmen, how your bowlers are going to execute against their batsmen. You know, and so that's basically what happens on there. You talk about matchups, you know, and many times you see a right-hander is in the wicket, and if you have a left-arm spinner, he will bowl to the right-hander. If you have a left-hander, the off-spinner will bowl to him, taking the ball away. If you have a wrist spinner, well, of course, it is a bit more difficult. But of course, teams do sit down and strategize. Sometimes it's very important to remember your plans when you're out there in the middle, in the heat of the battle. Sometimes you forget your plans. And sometimes you make mistakes, whether it's field placing or not. Simple things. Your best fielders are supposed to be in certain areas on the field. Because of the game being fast moving, you might not do that. So you might find a fast bowler and he covers instead of him being on the boundary, because of the nature of the game. But each individual should be aware of what their roles are. And that's what you keep hearing all the time, working on our roles, who's to do what, who's to do the other. But then, of course, it comes down to execution on the day of the game. And if you don't execute, that's what's going to happen. The other team execute better than you. But I just want to go back to something that was said earlier about the averages. In the T20 game, I don't think averages really matters much to a lot of individuals. It is more just strike rates. Let's put it this way. If you happen to have a good average, well, great. But in the T20 game, it's more about a strike rate. So if you have, let's put it, you set up your two teams, and my top 6 batters in my team has a strike rate of 140 each. Let's put it this way. And they all execute their strike rates at 140 each. But you're up against another team that has their top 6 whose strike rate is 170 each. And if they execute as well, so understand what I'm saying. So if your strike rates are 140 and you execute your game, you might score 220. But my 6 on the other side, their strike rate is 160, 170 each. Don't you think they're going to pass you? So that's why we see sometimes teams scoring 220 and then teams scoring 221 for 3 and, sort of things like that. So again, it comes down to, on the day of the game, the conditions that you're up against. You have to make that assessment because some pitches might be flat. And if a pitch is flat, you as a batting team will say, look, this is like it's a 250 pitch. You got to go out there and perform like it's a 250 pitch. If you get a pitch that is still in square, it's a bit slow, it's difficult, you might say, man, it's difficult to, assessment and say maybe it's a 160 pitch. And maybe this is the sort of assessment that has to take place with the teams as you play a multi-tournament, because not one team you're playing against with one different bowling attack, which you might get used to. You're playing against different teams. So every team presents a different challenge, and every pitch might present a different challenge as well. So you make sure you do your assessment, and the players will have to adapt. So that's what's going to happen. Your players will have to be able to adapt to different conditions and different bowling styles and different bowling attacks.
So to that point that Gus is making, for example, last month when we played South Africa, we batted first and scored a reasonably, I think it was 212 runs. And it was now up to the bowling to defend it. And they could not defend the 212 runs, which is a solid score in a T20 game. It's not a weak score, it's a solid score. But they can't defend it. And Gus, you mentioned the 300 scores. Among full member teams, it's only England that have scored 300 runs against another full member team, which they did last year against South Africa. India has come close, they scored, I think, 290 something. But again, with the World Cup expanding to include 20 teams, just to your point again, I would agree with you that we expect a few 300 run scored, 300 totals in our games. John?
No 400s.
No. Oh boy. I would hope that, please.
Turn Surabancha loose. Oh boy.
The associate teams, some of the associate teams will be very, very worried, especially playing in India and in those conditions if they get a flat pitch. In Sri Lanka, it will be a little bit more tested because the pitches there would turn a bit more, maybe a little bit slower than in India. India can produce some belters. And I believe that in India, I would really think that in India, the 300 scores will be more possible in Indian condition than Sri Lankan condition.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm excited about the World Cup. I think we wish and hope and expect the West Indies at least to be extremely competitive. I believe that the strength lies in the batting, and they think so too. Yeah. The problem here now would be the batting order, and Gus made a very important point. We seem content to make those 50s, maybe 60s, but you need at least one batsman to carry through so that you don't have you always have a set batsman at the crease.
Yes.
I think that's very crucial. Somebody must always be set. You don't want to lose 2 and 3 quick wickets, especially and get 2 new batsmen at the crease. And I know Gus will identify with that very much. And with his experience, and both as a coach and as a player at the highest standard, tell us how important it is with partnerships, one, and having set batsmen at the crease.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think, you break the game down into small segments. And of course, you talk about power plays, which starts the game. You always feel you want to have the perfect start. And the perfect start is to have you scoring, in excess possibly of 10 and over for the first 6, but not losing any wickets. So you always say to yourself, look, if we have to lose a wicket, we prefer to lose 1 wicket and possibly maybe at the end of the power play. So like by 5.5 overs, you may lose your first wicket, but the score could be about 60 or 70. Then you can build on that. And then you talk about accumulating runs in the middle phase where you're accumulating runs. And accumulating runs doesn't necessarily have to be ones and twos. It can be ones and twos also with 6s and 4s in between. You're accumulating runs, you have wickets like that. And of course, in that middle overs, by the time you get to the 15th over, you're thinking if you lose another wicket or 2, that's fine. So at the 15th over, if the score is anything at 150, 160 for about 3, you always feel that you're in it to get to about 240, 250. And I think that's basically what you like, because at the end, that's when you want to make sure you have the big hitters. They are confident, they are comfortable, they can now clear defenses. So the last 5 overs, you can get as many as you want. We've seen teams score 90 runs in 5 overs. We've seen teams score 80 runs in 5 overs with wickets in hand. So a score of 220, 230 is always on the cards. Of course, if you're off to a flyer like what we've been seeing in 10 overs, people scoring 150, that's incredible scoring rate. And if you can do that, hey, no problem. But can you do it consistently enough against different type of bowling? That is also questionable, but very important to get the kind of start that you want and build from there. So I think that's the format, that's the way, the strategy that is expected from a team like the West Indies. If they can do that consistently enough, I'm certain that they will challenge the best team on the day.
Thank you, Gus. And Professor, from the mental aspect, what areas of the game do you think it's key for the players to be really mindful and being aware? Gus mentioned adaptability, but what aspect of the game you really believe they have to focus on and make sure that they stand and deliver?
On the fielding. On the fielding.
Okay.
I think we have seen some sloppiness in West Indies fielding.
Mm-hmm.
And on the placement of the players on the field as the game moves along. Okay. I do not see the type of conferencing taking place in regards to the fielding as I see with some other teams. That is remembering the pre-game discussion that took place and the analysis in regards to specific batters. Because when I look at the other teams, it is strange that any time that they do not move more than maybe about 5 or 6 feet to catch a ball. Sometimes the ball comes directly to them. Okay? That is, I don't know if they have notes on their on their hands like they do in football. Okay. But you have to wonder, how is it that the batter he smashes a ball so hard and it goes right into the guy's glove? Okay? That is, he is well prepared for the bowler, between what the bowler is going to bowl to this batter and where he expects that ball to end up after he makes contact. Okay? And this happens even when he changes the pace. And he goes for the bleachers and the guy standing right there on the boundary waiting for the ball. Right in his hands. That means they're looking at the data. And I do not think that we spend as much time focusing on the data for individual batters that we are facing. So I think we give up a lot of cheap runs.
If I may just piggyback on what you just said here, one of the things that we have noticed, or I have noticed, is that the international batters today, the top international batters, the T20 batters today, in many of the top teams in the world, are sort of what you call 360 players. When I say 360 players, they can score all around the wicket, whereas some of our players are not 360 players. What we have are players who will play particular shots. Like if you look at the wagon wheels of our players, they will hit sixes in certain areas. They may hit fours in certain areas. So you find long on, long off, over cover, mid wicket. You understand what I'm saying? Some of those are the areas that many of our players hit and hit frequently. Whereas some of the other players, the Indian players, reverse sweeps, conventional sweeps, what you call, scoops and different things, they play. Not many of our players are very much comfortable playing some of those shots. You might find a Hope might play a little bit of it, maybe Johnson Charles may try to switch it, but not many of our top players play those type of shots. So sometimes it's very difficult to set the field for, a guy who's a 360 player, so that they can play 3 different shots to the same ball. You understand what I'm saying? And that's the development of some of these players now in world cricket. And that's where we may need to, maybe that's where the game has moved away from just the big hitting that we have been used to. Those players are developing, they're innovating, they're developing different places to play shots. There was a time when a Yorker, you couldn't do anything with a Yorker. But I've seen some of the Indian players make room and hit the Yorker square for 4. Whereas the good Yorker, you pat it back or you just drop it there. So again, that's where our game has to evolve. And I think that's where our players will have to now possibly put more work in to get into that level. It's just incredible.
Yeah. John and everyone, and Gus, again, thank you very much, because with all the data, if it tells me that you are weak in a certain area and you go back and you practice, what a surprise I will be in for when I come and try to get you out bowling to you that way.
Exactly.
Because you are now prepared.
Yes.
Because as the opposition uses data against you, you can use it for yourself. The great George Headley went to Australia. They realized he was not as effective on the onside, and they got him out relatively cheaply. He still made some runs, but and what did he do? He went back and practiced until he became the best onside player in the world. So knowing that you are weak and is one issue. But the other thing, Gus and John and the professor, is development of strokes all round the wicket. Gus mentioned it as 360. And we used to call, I guess they still call him that, A.B. de Villiers from Australia, Mr. 360, because he could score from the same delivery in 6 different directions. Right. So you couldn't bowl a particular way to him. Yeah. With our West Indian batters, you can set a field. Yes, they'll clear the boundary 5, 6, 7, 8 times, but by the time they get to 60 or 70, the luck is going to run out. So you keep feeding them that ball, knowing eventually they're gonna do it. So those are great points that you bring up there, Gus. And John, anything to add to that? Because I think those are really putting our weaknesses in a nutshell.
Yeah, and it's just seems as if our inability to find the spaces for the ones and twos. If you're not going to hit every ball over the top, but you should be able to push it through the spaces and get the ones and twos. And we just, as Trevor is saying, we play the ball into the fielder's hands. And not being able to get our ball through the spaces. And I find that as a problem with our team and our batting. And if we can master getting the ones and the twos, playing through the, the gaps, we'll be all right.
I do not know, Brother Gus, how the West Indies team rates in comparison to other teams in singles. In
Well,
singles.
Professor, look, if you go back into the archives and you listen to the people who are in charge of our teams
Uh,
and their utterances, it tells you the mindset.
right.
They tell you that why run singles and twos when you can hit six and fours. so, so it's a mindset that, and it's a format of the way they want to play. It's a mindset, it's a way they want to play. I am not saying all of the players do it, but it is something that was expressed by the powers that be, the people in charge, when they won. I think the last championship, you had the Gales and the Pollards and all these big hitters. So they talk about it many times. Why is it the West Indies team are not rotating singles and running twos as hard as other teams, or even threes as other teams? And the retort was, why should we run ones and twos when we can hit six and fours? So again, that's a mindset that has been developed in our cricket. So that I would think in their practice sessions, whether you want to call it that, the training sessions, whether they just use soft hands and hit the gaps and not, it's another thing. Maybe they just practice, what you call power hitting. I know a lot of them do it, they power hitting. I think you even have to look at possibly how the players now they look on the field. Most of the guys are very buff, if you want to call it that. They seem to spend a lot more time in the gym than possibly, be running ones and twos, if you want to call it that. But I'm just being, but it's just that it's not being in the psyche of our players to really and truly run as hard as they can when you see other teams do it. It is very much disheartening to see that the amount of dot balls that we play, and yet still we are able to score 180, 190, but you're still giving up 50, 40 dot balls. If we can really and truly, get rid of some of those dot balls and get singles and twos, who knows, maybe we might be getting up there in 250s more regularly.
I think
Well,
one of I think one of the excitement of the women's game is that they run the wicket so much. Okay. They are not focused. I guess they don't spend as much time in the gym.
Well, it's funny because they seem to think all the West Indies team, women as well as men, seem to be having the same problem, not wanting to run singles and twos, whereas other teams do
Yeah,
it.
just swinging for the
Oh
fences.
yeah, other teams seem to be. Maybe it's also sometimes you can put it down to maybe the fitness levels of the teams, maybe a little bit different. But I think it's a mindset, and I think it's something that players certainly have to be conscious of, especially in a World Cup like this. You're going to have to run, your skins off. You're going to have to be as fit as possible. You're going to have to
Mhm.
really and truly put your body on the line. It's not going to happen just by hitting sixes and fours.
How important is fitness Gus?
It's very important. Fitness is very, very important. Many times when you're fit, there's an old saying, tired minds, kind of think. And at the end of the day, if you're physically tired, you just kind of think the game as you would like. So the fitter you are, that's why they have assessments. They have assessments in terms, sometimes they do different tests, whether it's called yoga test, whether it's called beat test. It depends on where you are. And when you look at some of the top players in the world, their beat test figures are way above some of our players. I've had guys in the past who, scoff at the fact that we have to do these fitness tests. They believe I have the skill, I can bat, I can bowl. Why do I need to be running, 14 or 15 in a fitness test, and these deep tests? I don't need to do that. So it's a mindset that we have to understand that this is all part and parcel of professional sports. You cannot want some of it and not all of it. And I think it's something that has to be across the board. When we look at our young players, we look at our women, we look at every aspect of our cricket from grassroots right up. Fitness has never been something that we think is ultimate. You think, oh man, once you bat long enough, you okay, you get fit. Well, you bat long enough. Once you bowl long enough, you get fit. You might get fit for a specific skill, but cricket is a game you have to be out there for hours upon hours on your feet. You got to be able to
Mhm.
mix up the training methods. You got to do sprints. You got to do a bit of cardio. You got to do a little bit of endurance work, and that's part of the game that a lot of people don't seem to think that is necessary. So but our fitness levels are not where it needs to be, and not where it's supposed to be. There was a day, I'm going back to the time when we were playing. We had a trainer called Dennis Wade. And when we go to places like Australia, India, all these places to train, people used to just come to watch us run. They used to just come to see us run. And many of our players, because they had good physiques, used to take their shirts off, they exercise, they show the muscles, and of course, more fans will come out and watch you. Just train, and you want to train. Even when you finish training, you still want to keep going. You know, many times we used to run from hotel to the ground to the hotel. We used to just do a lot of running,
Yeah.
put a lot of miles on the legs, you know, and I can guarantee you, man, when you finish, you sleep like a baby. Sometimes you sleeping and your feet moving for itself. That when you went out in the middle, you know, it's like a breeze. You feel so energized, and you know you can handle most of it.
Gus, or John, we're talking about fitness, and sometimes I wonder why the batsmen they hit the ball down to long on or long off, and we know it's a single. But how about starting off pretty quickly to put the fielder under some pressure
Yeah.
and let the fielder expend some energy, going, making sure that he holds it to a single.
Mhm. I give you a joke. I had a young man on a youth team under 19, 18, and he was doing the same thing. He was hitting the ball to middle, and the fielder is just nicely walking in, picking it up and throwing it, and he was jogging a single. So at the water break, I said to him, man, why don't you try to run the first run hard so that you can put the fielder under some pressure? He might make a mistake, you never know, you can go for two. He said, but coach, I do it whole day and he and miss field ball yet.
Mhm.
I
But you know something though, yeah, it's funny you bring that up, you know, because I see the same thing in baseball now. It's an obvious
oh,
you can get to
God.
first base and you just jog to first base. And I'm saying it's interesting that a lot of baseball players have not patterned how Pete Rose used to play baseball. And obvious you go and get but Pete Rose will hustle to first base because he's looking for second base.
Yeah,
And it's the same in cricket. Maybe don't have your single. But
yeah.
if I am the manager, I let my team know you're hustling that
That's the
first
first
run
run fast. But
because
that's a
I
basic.
believe you put the fielding team under
100%.
pressure.
That's a basic. You say
Yes,
run the first one hard. And as
Yeah.
far as he was
yeah.
concerned, man, I hitting it down to him all day and he and Miss Steeler ball here, so why you want to run hard for?
Yeah, because you look at Virat Kohli, Virat Kohli come, Virat Kohli looking
Oh
for two.
man, yeah.
Yeah,
Different mindset,
No,
different mindset.
Well,
and I think Gus, Larry Gomes
Mhm,
had the reputation for tiring out fielders
mhm,
because he would place the ball in the gaps, and of course they would run hard. And
mhm.
then when Viv and the other batsmen came up, now they hit the ball all over the place. Fielders don't have a chance,
You
you
just
know. But
retrieve.
that fitness, test the fielders,
Mhm.
let them
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to hustle and come to that ball.
Yeah, there are different strategies, and that's why I say you in a team you have different players in a team who bring certain things to the table that are different, but they complement each other because that's what a team is all about. A team is a group of individuals, you know, really and truly have a purpose, but they bring
Yeah,
different styles to the table. Basically, that is combined to make it a whole. It's like a dish. You're trying to make that perfect dish. Everybody brings something different, you know, to
yeah,
put in that dish. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you're making this perfect dish, but you have different ingredients. So you talk about a Larry Gomes, he came with a different ingredient that was very effective. You talk about a Viv, that was also very effective. You know, a Lloyd, you know, a Haynes, a Grinnell, they all came with different ingredients to make this perfect dish. And once they were on song, it makes it very difficult because again, you can't. Some bowlers couldn't bowl to certain lengths, and then the certain lengths they couldn't bowl to Lloyd, and certain lengths they couldn't bowl to Greenwich. So when they bowl the same length to Greenwich, Lloyd might hit it somewhere different. Viv might hit it somewhere different. Larry might guide it along this. So it made it very difficult for opposition because they all played differently in their own style, but very effective.
yeah. And Professor, back to this with the same thing with the singles, the dot balls. That's the real Achilles. I think Gus had mentioned it before. But when you do not score, or 47% of the deliveries that you face, that only leaves 53%. From that 53%, how many, and in this case, you have 120 balls, half of it is six. So let's say you have 55 balls to score off, or 65 balls, I'm sorry, to score off. Let's say that is it. If you average 3 runs per delivery, it's 190, 95 runs you're gonna score. And that is at almost at best.
mhm.
And you're putting yourself under a lot of pressure. And this is where again data whether it's the numerical data comes in, and then you have the narrative data that comes in where the coach has to say, hey, listen, we can't put so much pressure on ourselves. You know, I think I heard Pollard say if he got 8 runs off the first 4 balls, then he could focus on hitting one of the last 2 balls for a boundary.
Right.
So you have to go in with a plan and you have to target each bowler. What we would like to see from the West Indies team is that you see them trying to execute that plan.
Well, as long as I would say that they have to keep the score going. Okay. I have seen where a ball pops up, a fielder settles underneath it, he drops the ball, they don't get a run. He drops the ball. I have seen where they hit the ball and they think it's a 4, and the wind catches the ball and it dies at the boundary, and they don't get a run because the batter stands there admiring his 4, his 6. Okay.
Yeah, that's lack of game awareness, and that again we talk about that. You know,
Yes.
awareness is very important. You got to be aware of the situation of the game all the time, all the time. Can't take anything for granted. In these games, it's very much the margin, and 1 run here, 1 run there can make a difference. You know, so they have to take every single one as it comes. And I'm certain, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they've all played a lot of T20 cricket all around the world. They're coming together now, putting their heads together. I do believe, and I'm hoping that they can really put it together as a group in this year. Hopefully, we'll see a lot more hustle from them. We'll see a lot more, you know, confidence being shown. We'll see a lot more improvement in the competencies of the players themselves. And I'm hoping that mentally they will be a lot more tougher to handle those situations, whether it's bowling or batting and those. So I'm really hoping that they can put it together. And you know, I'm looking forward to the tournament with much enthusiasm and much excitement. No two ways about it, but I know it's going to be a tough.
Have you thought about a starting 11 for Gus? Or another panel?
I think basically the squad, I would like to think it speaks for itself. I think it's what 15 guys there. Brother Dale, maybe you'll be able to tell me the game, but I'm thinking that people like just to be left out, maybe a Samson will be left out in the first game. I have no doubt that Charles will not play. You know, there's every possibility that they may play the 3 spinners. There's always a possibility that Ford, even though I think he's a dark horse, I like him. I think he's like a Palace bracket in there. He could be very dangerous down the order. But I would look at thinking they will want to go with pace up front. They may look at, you know, Holder and what's his name?
Jaden Seals.
I think Jaden Seals could find himself sitting down for 1 or 2 of those games. I would think they may want to Shamar Joseph, as much as you know, as you alluded to the fact he's a red ball bowler, but he brings something to the table. He's a wicket taker. I think he seemed to have a good head on his shoulders, especially bowling at the depth, which we don't seem to have much of. So I think he might be a starter. And I think people like maybe Seals, you know, Samson and Johnson Charles, those guys might be out for the first game. Is it 14 they have or 15?
15.
15, yes.
So the 4, yeah. So my most likely I would like to think my 4 who will be out for the first game would be, you know, Seals might be out for the first game. I would think that Samson will be out for the first game. Charles will be out for the first game. And it will be a toss-up between what's his name? Possibly the other fast bowler in
Shamar and Jaden.
No, I think Shamar will play. Jaden will be out for this first game. You know, and yeah. So that's it. I would think
You think Matthew Ford is going to start, Gus?
I'm not too sure he's going to start. I think he might be left out as well. So those 2, I think they will want to play their 3 spinners and hope and have Chase will be there with the batting as well. But that will be a toss-up going forward. I think could be always an issue between Chase and Matthew.
Then they will have 3 spinners.
Yeah, I think they will want to start with the 3 spinners playing there against Scotland. You know, I think they will not want to go all pace. They will want to go with the spin because they will think Scotland is susceptible to the spin in India, whereas they will prefer the ball coming home. For this particular.
Thank you. I've not heard anybody mention Carty.
No, Carty's not in there.
He's not in the squad. Yeah, he's
I
not in the
know.
squad.
I know. That's what I'm saying here that, you know, I would
Yeah,
have think that one of the, you know, he's a young upcoming player too. I
yeah.
mean, yes,
I think
he has to, you know, get experience also.
he has fallen away a little bit.
Yeah,
He's
both him
fallen
and
away a little.
Athanasis have not.
Yeah, he's fallen away a little bit, and he will
Mm.
certainly have to get back possibly during the session at home, get back to some sort of confidence again.
Well, John, as you mentioned the lineup there, I have a lot of reservations about Seals. Along with Shepherd, they are by far our two most expensive bowlers. Shepherd, I think, is when they decide to use him, when they use him and the type of deliveries he tries to bowl, which is usually banging it in the middle of the pitch, and he gets carted around quite a bit. Seals, I believe, is a test cricket bowler, and I'm not comfortable with him in this format. Shamar Joseph, coming off injury, is not consistent in this format either, but he's more, I believe, as a wicket taking threat than Seals. I think that they should play both spin bowlers. How they use them is another matter. When they use them is another matter. But I think Holder I don't want to see him batting too low down in the order. I think you need the more productive hitters as high up as possible. And that goes for Shepherd and Holder. And Chase is going to play, but I don't want to see him. I'm not comfortable with him being high up in the order. But he's actually more or just as effective as our other spin bowlers. So I don't have a problem with him playing. And he's fairly steady with the batting. You know, he's not very, very weak. He has his moments. You know, actually, in terms of runs scored, he was our third highest scorer last year. Of course, he got the opportunity, but he scored the runs. You know, only Powell and Hope scored more than him. And I pray that the temptation to fool around with Rovman Powell will not come to pass because I think that there is something there with him. I don't know the confidence level they have in Rovman Powell. Any takers on that?
Well, human nature, I guess, you're dealing with at the end of the day. There could be. Remember, again, he was former captain. You know, at the end of the day, you know, he would have had a lot more say in terms of where he batted, and of course, the approach. Now it's a different situation. He has to accept whatever is there as far as the management is concerned. He's no longer in that part of decision making. But I have no doubt that he has the quality, but he has to put the runs on the board. He has to make sure whenever he gets his opportunity, he does work for him. You know, whether he bats at in the middle or he bats at a finisher. Because that seemed to be the situation. I think he's now may have to look at batting somewhere in the middle, maybe number 5, when you look at the lineup that they have. Because definitely, you know, I'm surprised that Rutherford is being kept as possibly a finisher. I would like to see Rutherford bat in a more responsible position. I think he has the quality to really bat, you know, a little bit higher than he is. You know, so you're talking about Hope and
I have him at 4 in my lineup.
possibly King, you know, up there, and then of course, you know, that to me, Pep Myers there and he bats a 3, that's fine. You know, that's again is another situation. You talk about being flexible in a batting order. And I think what they were trying to do is to have left-right combinations, left-right combinations. So, you know, you may have King and the captain batting. If one gets out, you have Hetmeyer coming in. If they're supposing the captain gets out, goes a bit early, Hetmeyer is there, they may not want to send out a foot into a 2 left, and they may then break it up and send a right-hander in, maybe Hope, maybe Chase. You know, so you have that left-right combination going on, hopefully as deep as possible. But that seemed to be the modus operandi of the team at this point in time. Me,
Yes, sorry, Gus. Are you saying you don't think it's ideal for Rutherford and Hetmeyer to follow each other in the batting order?
No, I don't have an issue, but I'm saying that seemed to be an issue with the team itself. It didn't seem as though they want to have two left-handers in the wicket at any given time, especially early on. What they would like to have is a left-right combination. And it's all because they feel the bowling attack will get used to two left-handers. They want to make it left, right, as deep as is possible so that they can upset the lines of the bowlers as best as possible. But it may come to a situation where they both will have to bat together, regardless of what the situation is. But I think initially, when I looked at how they played in South Africa, it was a situation of not wanting, because there was a time when what's his name was there batting well, which was Hetmeyer, and they delayed sending Rutherford in. I think they delayed him for as long as it's possible. And then when he did come in, he went berserk and he hit, a quick fire. He was not out. So I'm saying if you're in a situation where you're not out 50, had you batted possibly 3-4 overs before, that score could have been 240. Going, given the kind of form that he was in, especially in South Africa, having played there before, and his result. So again, tactics-wise, sometimes the tactics-wise is something that has to be spot on. We got to know when to send these players and when possibly to hold back somebody. But we need to know when to send your best players in to get as much strike as possible, especially when they're on sound. Your best players should face most of the balls.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, Rutherford, I thought at that stage I think they put in Rovman Powell. They brought him in, and he failed. But given that Rutherford was in such fine form, and Hetmeyer was going great guns,
exactly.
I thought that Rutherford would have come in, given the score and everything, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, so that's why I said the think tank. It's something that they will have to look at. Whether in good conditions, whether you will settle for 220 or try to get to 240. Maybe they felt anything over 200 was good enough, because initially in the first game, when you listen to the interview of the captain, which was Chase, he said even though the score down, it was about 170, or they chased it down by winning by 9 wickets with the over and a bit to spare or something like that. Or a few balls to spare. He said they were looking for 190. I would think they would have chased 190 as well. So you got 220 yards, so they must have felt pretty confident scoring 220 yards after scoring 170 yards the game before. So you think that they would have settled for 220 yards instead of possibly getting 240 or 250. So these are some of the technical, tactical decisions that the coaches, the people who are there, will have to make and make quickly.
Yes, so Professor, your closing comments about the upcoming World Cup. Of course, we'll be back during the World Cup, but what we are looking forward to and what we could reasonably expect from the top teams. And of course, we know Pakistan is the big issue, but let's just say that they play or they forfeit the game but still advance. Do you still expect them to advance? And do you expect the West Indies to also advance?
If Pakistan forfeits the game, West Indies is going to advance. That is my call on that. If Pakistan forfeits, West Indies is going to advance. And because Pakistan will be under more pressure just to try to catch up, because they would have no points from a game. And I would like to say that West Indies is going to be very competitive. They're overdue. Okay, we do not question if they have the talent. We question other things, but we don't question their talent. Okay, so I am expecting that they're gonna surprise and give up. They're gonna surprise they're gonna surprise the rest of them, and they're gonna make the West Indies. They're gonna change the whole energy of cricket in the West Indies. They're gonna do very well. They have gone as low as they could get. We have seen them gone to the bottom of the barrel. So we know that there's only one place they can go now, and that's up. And just the fact that they qualify, Just the fact that they qualify. You know, 5 months ago, based on what we're going through, qualification was that some people we were betting on. Okay. But much less to win. You know, qualification was not something that was even on our sheet. The fact that they qualified, and and we had other teams like Scotland on the outside looking in, is a strong message. Okay, they got the points.
Hmm.
They were focused and they got the points. So I'm looking for them to make us very proud there. Very, very proud.
Okay. And John, India, as we know, they are the defending champions. They're ranked number one, and they are the favorites because they are at home. But guess what? They would be the first home team to win the T20 World Cup. John, what are the chances of that happening?
Let me see now. They have Mr. Bumrah and Mr. Kohli and is Rohit in the squad there?
No.
No, cool.
No.
Well, they have Shubman Gill, right?
He's
And huh?
No, Gill is not there.
Oh, Gill is not there?
no
No.
Kohli.
No Gill.
No Gill, no Kohli. Different team, a young team. Exciting
You said
team.
Kohli isn't there?
No.
No Kohli.
Then they can't win at home.
Oh man.
Mm-mm.
Oh, Lord.
Because
Oh,
Virat
man.
Kohli has been the backbone of that team for the last so long. They can't win at home with, and KL Rahul. Is he in there?
No.
Oh, KL Rahul? No, he's not there.
No, he's not there
Different
either.
team, man.
No.
The T20 team has been revamped since a while now, since after they win in the Caribbean. Those guys retired.
I think that opens the gate for Australia,
Okay, so you
I
don't
think
have
that opens
India.
the gate and don't sneeze at Afghanistan.
I just sent you the team, John, in the Indian team.
Yeah. Yeah, don't bypass Afghanistan. I think Afghanistan is going to surprise some people. Australia. I leave it between Australia and Afghanistan.
Oh, okay. All right, so you don't believe that India is going to win?
No, they might get to the semi-final, but
Okay.
I don't think they're going to win.
Okay. And you're picking Afghanistan as a dark horse because they're in with New Zealand and South Africa.
They're in that group with New Zealand and South Africa.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So they're the third seeded team in that group. So they're not expected to come out of that group.
Afghanistan,
right.
well, I think they're coming out. I think they're coming out. I think they're coming out in a deal.
Okay. And that would be ahead of whom? New Zealand or South Africa?
South Africa.
Okay, we're writing it down. Okay, sir. Yes, so you have India out and either Australia or Afghanistan as a dark horse. And Brother Gus, the same thing, India, no team has ever won at home. And India clear favorites. Who do you think would challenge them? Their greatest challengers, who do you think they would be? And would India really be the favorites in your eyes?
I think all indications they are. I think the Indian team is a well knit unit. I think they have proven that beyond a doubt. They have played a lot of opposition in India in the T20 format over the last year. And they have done well with a new new team, if you want to call it, different names, fresh names, but all exciting players, all players who are capable of winning games for them with the bat and with the ball. I still feel that a team like Australia, you cannot discount them. They could be a force. I like the look of England. England team also has some pedigree. They can also be a force. We have seen South Africa playing well the last few, even in India, they have done well. They won a test series recently in Pakistan, I think it was. They won a test series in India. So they too also are a force to be reckoned with. So at the end of the day, my dark horse, as I said before, is West Indies. No pun intended, but it simply is. Why the dark horse is. But I still feel it's India's tournament to lose. Let's put it this way. And I understand that the pressures at home could be enormous, but I still feel it's their tournament to lose.
Okay, and for everyone, two players that you look to dominate the tournament. Two players from, just any, let's say three players. Three players that you'd love to see dominate the tournament. And we'll go batsman and bowler, yeah.
Across the board or with West Indies team?
Well, we may not know all the players from all the teams. So let's start with West Indies team.
I'm looking for Jason Holder and Shea Hope. And O'Neill, I think his spin is gonna get his spin was getting he was peaking.
Who?
Oh, Hossein.
Hossein.
Yeah, Hossein.
Hossein was peaking from my point of view. So I expect that he's gonna give us some nice duck ball.
Mm.
Yeah.
I look at Shea Hope and Sherfield, what for dinner.
Okay. And any bowler, although it's our weakness.
A bowler. That's my difficulty. I mean, I would like to see our spinners do well, Akil Hussain, because I think another way use him to open the bowling as usual.
Mm.
But that's why I would go with as a bowler, Akil Hussain.
Okay, so Gus,
Yeah, I would like to see Shea Hope, as Noto is about as captain. I think he matured in all formats. So I would like to see him go. I like to see Hetmeyer once he gets there. I think he's in a rich vein of form. There's no two ways about it. And of course, Muti. I think Muti seemed to be coming into his own as well as a spinner. Yeah, Muti takes wickets. Yes, he could be expensive at times, but he's proven that he takes wickets there in the middle. So maybe like to see him do that for those two.
Okay, so Professor, I turn it over to you, sir.
Well, let me say again, thank you, gentlemen, for spending this time to address, cricket from our Hall of Fame platform, and that it will be, I would say, a tradition that we have to follow. We cannot be spectators in any format, in anything that has to do with cricket. We have to fully participate in all aspects, pre and post, okay? Because we were never followers. And just because we slip, we're gonna get up and we're gonna finish the race. So thank you so much for spending the time to give our viewers and our listeners our input on what we are expecting, not only from in the world of cricket, but the confidence that we have in the team that we are sending to represent the West Indies. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lovely.
Thank you, and have a good evening, folks.
Yes, thank you.